Hi there, I'm Alex. My background's as a media researcher and entrepreneur, and recently we launched Press Patron, which is a crowdfunding platform for journalism, just last week. I'm going to give a little bit of background about the research that led to that, but just to begin, I think there's some fantastic ideas coming from everyone earlier today. There is no one silver bullet when it comes to funding quality public interest journalism, but each of these ideas are incredibly strong foundational pillars that we can build a really strong journalism ecosystem through. None of them are easy. A levy for journalism is not easy, but it doesn't mean that it should be outright dismissed. And you put them all together, like a levy, an endowment, philanthropy, like Peter was talking about. Each of those are very complementary, and I think they should all be analysed with a lot of depth. So with Press Patron, it came out of my master's research. We were looking at under what circumstances are people actually prepared to pay for journalism. There's a lot of resistance for readers to actually pay for stuff. A few you might know about, like paywalls and restrictions that go up onto sites. Well, the industry average is about 0.5% of visitors to those sites actually pay for the subscription. What was interesting within our research is that there's actually more people willing to make voluntary subscriptions with these sites out of their own goodwill. They love the mission of these sites. They want to support them wholeheartedly. They're not expecting anything direct in return, but there can be benefits if you make that part of your membership campaign. So it seems a little bit counterintuitive, but if you take, some sites already have paywalls, but it seems like if they took them down and experimented with this more open model, they might get a larger audience and actually more revenue in the long term. Some of the key findings in terms of the more open-ended questions that we asked within the survey, people want to pay for quality. If you do want to shift to a reader revenue model, you have to emphasize your best investigations, the in-depth journalism, and you have to provide a home for that so it's really easy for people to recognize the worthiness of your journalism. I won't name any names of publications, but there are repeated themes of obviously the clickbait stuff that crops up, the salacious journalism, the sensationalist stuff, the entertainment and the real light-hearted things that people might be curious about and they click on it, but it doesn't mean that they care about it, and it doesn't mean that it's quality. So by shifting to a contribution model where readers are paying up for stuff, I think it shifts the incentive structures for what journalists are working towards, instead of what are people curious about and what's going to reach the largest audience, through to what are people passionate about and what do we want to see written about to make our society a better place. But yeah, I'm keeping it short and sweet. If you do feel generous, you can go to presspatron.com, and we've got one campaign at the moment with public address. We're starting out with that. And yeah, if you've got any questions, happy to answer them. Yeah, Steve.
Sorry to ask you this question, I was going to ask you the last group. When you're looking at public broadcasting, do you think ownership matters? Do you think institutions matter? Or is it just a matter of content, which could be public interest in whatever form it might be, arts or journalism or whatever, that could be done by anybody? Or do you need ownership of an institution to guarantee that you're going to get that out?
So I think they're all incredibly important, and I think each of those elements should be strengthened. Institutions and ownership structures are incredibly important, and I think it's important to have a diversity of ownership structures, each pursuing a slightly different aspect of the mission of journalism, because everyone does have a different perspective. In terms of like an endowment or a levy, how that should be allocated, some of it could go to a public interest broadcaster that has a very strong ethos focused on public interest journalism, like RNZ, and expanding that across a broader repertoire of content types. But also you have an incredible amount of awesome journalism at NZME and Fairfax and the more commercial broadcasters and journalism outlets, and I think they should be propped up too and recognised and rewarded for that type of content. And it helps balance out some of the commercial incentives too.